Okay, I'm starting the recording. So welcome, everyone. So glad you're here to listen to the story of Susan Story. I would like to especially thank Shirley Weisman, who's on the Zoom this evening, for introducing me to Susan's story. So thank you for that introduction, Shirley. And of course, I want to thank my partner in Zoom Crime, John Pierre. So Susan M. Story, excuse me, is a Salmagundi non-resident artist. She was recently awarded an individual artist grant through the Arts Center of the Capital District from the New York State Council on the Arts Decentralization Program. Her project, to paint a life-size apple tree through the seasons around the apple tree, will be viewed publicly for the first time this evening. Her project is dedicated to her dad, Stanley Maltzman, who is on the Zoom this evening. Stanley is, of course, an artist, PSA, HFH.
Hall of Fame honoree.
Thank you, Susan. The Tree Man, and to her friend, Bill Creevy, PSA, MP, HFH, and the Mix Master. Susan will share her story, discuss the progress and process of her grant project. Susan is a landscape artist, primarily working in pastels. She's a signature master pastelist member of the Pastel Society of America, and she serves on their board of governors. She is a member of the Academic Artists Association, the Audubon Artists, the Hudson River Valley Art Association, the Salmagundi Club, and the Catherine Lorillard Wolf Club. Her work has been included in many national and international exhibitions and galleries. She has received numerous artistic honors, including the gold and silver medals of honor from Audubon Artists and the Anna Hyatt Huntington Bronze Medal for Pastel from the Catherine Lorillard Wolf Art Club. Her awards from the Pastel Society of America include many numerous arts. So at this point in time, I would like to encourage you to put any comments and or questions in the chat. As we said prior, your cameras are off and your audios are off, but we encourage you to participate through the chat. So at this point in time, please give a big welcome to Susan.
Good evening, everybody. I first of all would like to thank the Salmagundi Club, Bonnie and Shirley, for offering me this wonderful opportunity this evening. And I thank all of you for taking the time tonight to hear my story. So Bonnie has asked me to discuss a lot of different things. So in order to get that all done, I think that I should get right to the presentation and share my screen. Okay. For some reason, it doesn't want to open it. All right. Huh. Whoops. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. I need some music. So the name of this program is The Artist, the Grant, and the Story. So that is a lot to discuss. I wanted to start with a little bit about my background and my family, which Bonnie wanted me to talk about. I grew up in Yonkers, and I learned a lot from my mother, Rachel Petrozelli Maltzman. She was very good at sewing and using her hands, and she was also an oil painter. She was a housewife, but she still was very active doing all these other creative things. I was very fortunate as a child to grow up in such a creative family environment. There were many artists around me, except for my sister. However, she was much more academic, and she is great to have around for correcting my my speeches and written material. So it's worked out really well for me. And okay, this is one of my mother's beautiful, delicate oil paintings. It's on canvas. And here is another one on a Formica board. My father had found some circles that were at the dump that had been used. They were cutouts from stereos, and he thought they would be great because it was something sealed already. So my mother used them and painted. She had a really good time. And I think I love this one particularly. Okay, and another artist in my family was my uncle. He was married to my mother's sister. This is a contour line drawing that I did when I was a student, and I kept a sketchbook of contour line drawings. I actually won a scholarship for my sketchbook of contour line drawings. It really has ended up being a valuable tool. But anyway, I wanted to talk about my uncle. Okay, he did a lot of mixed media collage work, working with watercolors and acrylic, different papers and different mediums to create texture. This is a very large painting. You can see all the little textures here in the background. I think, yeah, I can zoom in. I think he did that with crackling paper and paint, but it's very interesting. And now how does she zoom out? There she goes. Okay. Oops, sorry. And here is another collage. And if you look carefully right here, it looks maybe there's even a piece of fabric that he put on there, and there's lots of different papers. He used to show annually in Greenwich Village, sorry. I think it was every year there was an outdoor show, and he would always attend. And here we have Daddy Dearest. He is a PSA Hall of Fame honoree, and his website is right there if you're interested. There he is in his studio. This picture was taken back in April, and he's going to be 100 years old July 4th. And as you can see, he is still painting and having fun with a little help from his friends. He was, of course, a huge influence on my work. He taught me everything that I know, just about. I was always looking over his shoulder and soaking everything up like a sponge. He had written 2 books, which are the Bibles on drawing, I'd say. You can see that he is quite the draftsman. He really has a love for nature and trees, the outdoors. He always has. He was a Boy Scout, you know. And this is some of his pastel work. This is a recent painting. You can see he also uses a beautiful palette. And I believe this painting was done on sanded paper. And here is another painting, which is something he did a little earlier. I believe this was on Wallace paper. You can see his fine drawing of trees. There you go. There's a good example. And this is a drawing with pastel pencil on probably a handmade paper from New York Central Art Supply Store, which we miss dearly. We used to go down there. It was like going to the candy store. This is a lithograph, which my father did. He drew on a limestone, and the prints were made right off of the stone. This particular one was hand painted with watercolor, and this and 2 other lithographs of his are part of the permanent collection in the Metropolitan. He's also in some other collections, such as the Butler and Reader's Digest. And he did some drawings for Steuben Glass, and they were engraved on some of the glass years ago. So my education. There I am with Daddy Dearest. I believe this was in '63. And we were out painting on a beach. I think it was Rockaway. And as I said before, I learned a lot from my father, looking over his shoulder because he was always drawing and painting at night after work. He was a commercial artist, and he would bring me home art supplies all the time. You know, if there were colored pencils that were going to be tossed, he'd bring them home for me, and I'd color with these little nubs, or little bits of pastel, different papers, anything to keep me going. And later on, we went into the city a lot. It was very it was very convenient to live in Yonkers because it took a half an hour to get into the city, and I was able to attend a lot of the galleries and the museums. And I can remember I was probably about the same age as in this picture, and we had gone to the Guggenheim Museum, and I loved looking at the permanent collection, and I saw the Impressionists there and really was attracted to their work. And then when I saw Degas and Ray Don, I was really pulled in, sucked in forever, because I just loved the pastel and the mark making and the colors. It was just something that I never forgot. So that was a huge influence on me. And I didn't realize at the time I was taking dancing lessons. Maybe that's another reason why I like Degas' work so much, but there's just this connection of the movement of trees and nature and dancing. I always think of them dancing. So later on, I went with my dad. I tagged along whenever he did workshops, and I would assist him a little bit, and we'd sort of be like a comedy team, and kind of entertained everybody. But it was a great, hands-on education. And then I attended Parsons School of Design for fashion design. It was way back when Parsons was in a warehouse down on 54th Street, right by the river. And the classes were very small. I think in the graduating class, it was about the third of the original size, and it might have been 20 students. The illustration there on the right-hand side was one of my projects in my third year, because it was a 3-year certificate course that I took. It was very intense, and this sketch was made out of gray chiffon, and the skirt had about 12 full circle panels. And that's huge. And all of those sequins were sewn on by hand. It was quite a job, and we had to get these projects done no matter what. And we rarely slept. But I had the whole family helping me in my parents' dining room because I commuted from Yonkers to New York to school. So we called in the whole family, my mother and my aunts, to sew on these sequins so I would get this gown done. And then I would bring it to school and they'd rip it apart in a fitting and start all over again. But one thing I did want to say, I'm just remembering, everything was very focused towards fashion design, but there was a very strong foundation of drawing and color and the elements of good design, whether it is in fashion or graphic design or illustration, whatever. So it has helped me with my fine art now. So I was in the garment business for, I don't know, maybe 12 years. And when I approached 30, I retired. I found it very stressful, and it was as hectic, and there was as much pressure as when I was in school, if not more. And it was kind of wearing on my health. I'm a very delicate person. And so I started working more on my fine art. When my dad saw my interest in pastel, he mailed me a set of Rembrandt pastels so I could work with some real tools, because all I had were little bits. And I remember one of my first paintings was a sunflower, because I knew of this artist out there that was drawing these beautiful sunflowers. Mine didn't look anything like his, though. And I'm talking about Jimmy Wright. But as I progressed and improved, and after many paintings and drawings, I started showing my work with my dad as a professional artist. Another part of my education was meeting Bill Creevy, who I call the Mix Master. This photograph, by the way, this gorgeous photograph was taken by Anthony Almeida, who does a lot of photography for the club and enters the shows, and he's fabulous, as you can see from this photo. I met Bill when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame at PSA, and we became friends, and he invited me to come to the Salmagundi Club for a monotype party. And it was a big thrill. It was very exciting. You'd sit around these tables with all these crazy artists, and they'd be drinking wine and talking and creating. And it was quite an experience. And I don't know if it was the same evening or not, but then Bill said, "Hey, why don't you become a member?" And I never would have thought to become a member of the Salmagundi Club way back then. But since somebody suggested it, I thought, okay, why not? I can try. So I became a member, and it has become one of the best things I've ever done. I just love the atmosphere and the community. And I hadn't been there for over a year, and I was down there a couple of weeks ago to drop off my painting for the members show. And it was just such a special feeling to walk in through the doors and see Chris. And Chris gave me a big hug and made me feel like I was home again. So I'm sorry we can't all be there together tonight, but this is better than nothing, and hopefully I'll see you at the end. But the thing about Bill that added to my education is that he was a mix master. He would mix a lot of mediums. He could paint a pair 5 million times and they would never look the same because it was about his process. My dad might paint or draw the same tree all the time, but he was going for the details and the quality of what nature had created. Bill was cooking something else up in his head. So they were total opposites. And so it was really fantastic for me to have the two different perspectives. And Bill was also the publisher of the author of 2 terrific books, also should be added to your Bible collection. My father hid the first one from me for a long time. He wouldn't let me look at it until I got good enough. And I graduated, and then he gave me Bill Creevy's book on pastel for Christmas, I think it was, or my birthday. So examples of the mix master's work. I'm not sure what's going on here. He has ballpoint pen, maybe colored pencil, charcoal, bit of water, maybe it's watercolor wash, maybe he put water on the charcoal, who knows. The mysteries. This one is ballpoint pen and oil pastel, and he said it was on an onion skin paper. I happen to own this picture. It's called Interstate. And it's got a classic Creevy car. And this is another mixed media ballpoint pen again, and oil paint. And it was just so creepy and weird. I loved it. I think he actually ended up covering up the entire ballpoint pen area, but I like it this way. And might I say, I think that yesterday was Bill's birthday, or it's today's. And here is one of his classic pears. And if I recall correctly, he painted this on fabric that he had put a lot of layers of different mediums on so that he could paint on it with pastel. Part of his crazy genius. This one was on plastic. And this one is pastel. I remember it was in the Pastel Society of America show, and it was on wood panel. And I just love how he took a simple egg and made it so interesting into an abstract composition sitting on a shelf. And maybe I see a cup of tea over here. I don't know, sideways. But I just thought it was great. Anyway, I know you all want to hear about the grant, but it said my story as well. So I wanted to share with you what I do generally as an artist. I'm a pastel landscape painter. So I wanted to show you some of my work. Some of you may have seen this painting in the Salmagundi Members Show, and it's also hanging in the Catherine Lorelei Wolf Club Art Show right now, both at the Salmagundi. And this is just pastel on Arches paper. And this is just something I see when I go out for my daily walk. And next we have a little earlier pastel that I did that I always loved, and it's on museum board, which my dad used to do, or still does sometimes. I don't usually work on museum board anymore, but I've always liked this one. So this is a birch tree from his yard, in fact. And here is another of my pastels. It's a pond up the street from me in the nature preserve in the winter time. And I think this one I did on a watercolor paper. And I just build up the layers and get my textures that way. The fun part for me was doing the water right there. I like that part. Okay, and here is a, whoops, another painting that I did, just something I see in the woods. And I did a golden underpainting here, so it would radiate. You'll notice that I like to paint winter a lot. I like the skeleton of the tree that I can see at that point, and the shadows, and something about the coldness of winter. I don't know. I just do it. And it's also a challenge to paint it without doing blue all the time. Maybe I should go back to that. Oops, I messed up here. Ah, hold on, guys. Well, I skipped one. Anyway, This is another pastel I did, and it's a little bit looser, and it is on sanded paper, which I don't usually use. Something's happened to my slideshow. Is something downloaded now? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. This is another recent painting. Again, it's winter, and there is really no white in there. I used a pale yellow, there's blue, there's peach, and there's just no white. But I think it still tells the story. This was actually a demonstration I did for the Colony Art League, which is a local art group near me. And this was inspired from a trip to California to visit family on the West Coast. And I exaggerated the shapes and made them tall and thin. They were a little bit flatter, but I wanted to do something different. And again, I used handmade paper. I like to experiment with different papers and the textures that they have. It's harder to use, and you have to be careful because you can get a lot of mud, but I like the challenge. And here is another local scene and another. Just around the corner, taking my walk. The trees weren't blue though. But most of these paintings that I'm showing you have won a lot of awards and have been honored. And so I'm just trying to give you a sampling of what I do. And you can see that I've been attracted to apple trees for a long time. This one was really kind of from imagination. And I used greens and reds to do this, to give you the impression of gray and black and white. And here is another apple tree painting. This is the last one I'm going to show you. I did this on handmade paper, and it was terrible because it just kept coming off no matter what I did. I can spray, but not too much spray, and I don't like to spray at the end. So I have framed this picture, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's staying where it is. This is actually inspired from the tree that I used for the grant. So I applied for my first grant. I guess that's a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years. And I was very delighted to have the grant approved. And it was an artist's grant to paint my tree for my project, which is called Around the Apple Tree. I wanted to paint a life-size apple tree that would go through the different seasons. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was, well, I love apple trees. I love the shapes and the way they bend and so forth. But I've noticed that there is much more of an interest in apples and apple trees in my area. It's become part of the economy because people are making apple cider, hard cider. There's lots of apple picking. That's always happened. But I think the hard cider has really brought in new interest, and there are a lot more orchards in the area. And I think that, like many things, particularly our food, we take it for granted, and we don't stop and think about how we get this food and what's put into it. And I feel an apple tree puts a lot into growing and producing this wonderful fruit for us that we enjoy so many different ways. So I dedicated this project to the tree man and the mix master because what they have taught me has gone into this project. There is a community part to this grant. I am painting my own tree, which is behind me, and I will also be providing a 8-foot tree, which the community will be painting on their own. And I'm donating that to a new business in town called the Volunteer Orchards, and they make apple cider and they do apple tree pruning and so forth. So they're in the community, and I was going to have this community event, which I still hope to have this fall, and everybody's invited. You can all come. And we usually have a fall festival, and there'll be apple cider pressing, and I will be showing my tree, and probably a video or a slideshow of everything that I've gone through making this project. What else? Well, part of this project, well, first of all, it was awarded to me from the Art Center of the Capital Region, and the funds were from the Decentralized Program, a re-grant program of the New York State Council on the Arts, with the support of our dear Governor Cuomo. And, whoops. Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. And I don't think I could go back. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Story, and I wanted to announce to you today some really exciting news. I have been awarded a grant by the Arts Center of the Capital Region on behalf of the New York State Council on the Arts. The purpose of this grant is to help support me in my project called Around the Apple Tree. I wanted to do this project so I could paint a life-size apple tree and bring awareness to everyone of how important this tree is to our community. When I finish painting the tree, I will invite the public to come to Conklin Hall here in Rensselaersville and celebrate the apple tree and all that it gives us, along with having some community events. And so right now, it is May 13th, 2020, and I am here at the Samuel Jenkins House in Rensselaersville, and behind me is one of my very all-time favorite apple trees, and this is the one that I will be painting and sharing with all of you. So come join me. Okay, so here I am at my favorite tree. My favorite apple tree, and you can see how gorgeous it is. It has so much character. It's not as old as the house, but it is still quite old, probably 45 years, 50 years maybe. It's great from any view, but I'm gonna get started.
Okay, oh, good. I thought I missed this one. I was going to say part of the grant program required that I
Susan, sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure how to explain this. You're chopped off part of your presentation.
oh, okay, maybe there we go. I'm so sorry.
Better, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for telling me. The grant work that they would give me half of the amount that the project needed to be created. So I had to get donations, whether it was money or supplies to make my project. I have to say that my local G&H was extremely generous. They gave me all of the paint that I'm using, and Home Depot gave me all of the panels that I'm using. And just a note for anyone that might go through this whole thing, they said to me, usually for the dollar amount of my request, you have to apply for a grant through them. But somehow they scared it up for me, and that was terrific. And a lot of my local friends and family have also been very supportive and helpful in different ways, giving me supplies, money, um, some of their wisdom. And actually, I have a question for everybody out there, and you can email me or whatever. I'm wondering how I'm going to finish, how to seal everything on this painting, because I'm using acrylic and I'm using oil, and it's going to get dirty when I move it around. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. So anyway, alrighty. So this is the first sketch that I made the day that I did the video that you watched previously. It was just in my Strathmore sketchbook using charcoal. And what I wanted to achieve was really just note the shape, the major shape of the tree and the major limbs, although I started getting a little spaghetti-like, but that's just, I didn't pay that much attention to that. And this is what I really used to draw my tree. I used this for my reference and some photographs that I had on my computer, but I was sketching from this tree all the time and thinking about my proportions. And one other thing that I did, my tree that I've painted is only 12 feet by 12 feet. This tree is actually bigger, but it's as much as I could do in my barn. But anyway, I started to say, to get the proportions of the tree, when I was out on the field, I held my hands around the tree to get a feeling for how wide it was. And I raised my arm up to see where that first big limb was. And I modified it a bit because I knew my painting would be smaller, but this is how I made my tree. Some people asked if I graphed it, but I don't do graphing. And this is just a little sketch that I did, really small. It was like 4.5 by 5, just for color feeling in springtime when everything was blooming. This was a larger one done on a handmade paper, and I don't know what it was. I just kept grabbing things and to work on it. And I used water on this at first, and the whole thing puckered up lovely. And so then I just let it dry and I put pastel on it, and it worked out pretty well. But this is just giving the impression of what I saw and what I felt. I'm not intending, and I was never intending to do a duplicate painting of the actual tree with every detail. That's not how I paint. I don't see the point of doing that. Okay, and here is just the.
Sorry, there's a comment in the chat from Gabriel Stockton. You asked people for ideas about mediums, and he writes Ghost and Matte Spray Medium by Golden. He says they may even donate.
Well, I tried them.
Okay.
I tried a lot of, it's interesting, I tried a lot of the art material manufacturers, and I could not get anything. But I think part of it was because of COVID. There were a lot of people that were hesitant because of COVID. Their business was hurting and they didn't want to give. But I'm sorry, you said Golden and it's a spray?
It's called Goss, Goss, and Matte, Matte, Spray Medium.
Okay, great. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.
Oh, and then he goes gloss.
Uh-huh. Would it be really shiny? I don't want it
Sounds
too shiny.
like it. I don't know.
All right, I'll have to look into that.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is just another sketch that I did on rice paper with pastel, which was also a nice little challenge to try and get it to stay on that paper. But I just wanted that feeling of the natural paper. So I did it. I was just having fun. And this is just another watercolor with pastel that I did on location. And it's interesting because the tree really had sort of a green side and a red side, at least from my eyes. And here is another one that I did in the fall. I was, spending my time trying to record the different seasons. And this one I started putting the apples, and the tree didn't actually have red apples. And in a way I was glad, because I didn't want to have red polka dots on my painting, let alone on my big tree. So I'm probably going to put a little bit of red on the apples, but they're mostly going to be green. And here is just a close-up study. It's pastel and watercolor. And this one was my first crack with oil sticks. And it was a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to use them on top of the acrylic painting that I've done on the actual tree. And this is a larger pastel, which I did in the studio. I consider it more of a finished piece, and it was a pretty good size. This is a different view than the one that I've been working on, but I loved the vines and the dead branches coming down like a veil. So, the tree. So here is my wonderful husband assembling my canvas. And I could only go the 12 feet because that's as high as my ceiling is. Excuse me. That's not going to work. Okay. And okay, my daughter said I shouldn't show this video, but I am anyway. So I just wanted to give you the impression of my entering the barn and facing my canvas. You can see all the panels are reinforced. Fortunately, I had skylights, so I had some light. And there's my assistant. And don't look at that. We go up and up and up. And there are some of my paints ready to go. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to make you see that again. Why is that? Okay, good. Alrighty, so we got rid of that white and we put in a sky. And there I am, late in the evening in the winter, and drawing my tree in. And I started drawing it in with charcoal, which may have been a mistake because now I have to erase it. I also started to use white chalk, which is very easy to remove. And it was great because I could just draw freely and that, just washes off. But then I went over the major shapes of the tree with an acrylic marker. And that's what I'm doing up there on the top of the scaffolding with my hard hat. Okay, my next step, I used crackle on the tree to hopefully give me more of a texture of the bark. And when I applied it, I tried to keep that in mind, the direction and the shapes and the knots and so forth on the tree. And I didn't use it on the very top of the tree, of the branches, because they would be smoother from where you are down on the ground. You wouldn't see all of that. So I was trying to create more perspective that way. And you can see my little sketch there taped on, and that's what I was following. And on the right-hand side, you can see I have my little palette out, and I used brushes and palette knives and all kinds of things to try and get the texture. What I did was I mixed up some of those acrylic paints that you saw in the can in the beginning. I mixed up some basic colors, and then I I mixed those colors as well while I was painting the tree. And here are some details of the trunk. You can see on the left side on the bottom here, there was a base color of the red and the green, but then I started painting the bark on top of it. And there I am again on the trapeze painting. It's interesting how the different lighting, all the colors look different. What I did was I pretty much focused on the trunk. And then I was just blocking in where the leaves were going to be and the flowers and the snow and so forth. They're not finished. They're just noted where they're going to be. And these are close-ups of the snow. You can see some of the chalk marks. I should use this and not my finger. You can see some of the chalk marks where I was scribbling. I was probably on a Zoom call. And another, just painting. You can see I'm using a really small brush there, surprisingly. I also found the acrylic paint dried much darker than I thought it was going to be. Here again, I have places made in chalk for the blooms. Another detail. I have to go back and of course make all of these details a lot finer and add a lot more color. And I also have to make the changes between the seasons a little bit more comfortable, not being blunt. That's just a close-up of a dead branch that I enjoyed painting. And another close-up. I started putting in where the apples will be, but they're not going to stay that way, nor will the leaves. It's one of my favorite branches on the tree. That's why there are 2 photos, maybe 3. Now here I started adding another value of green, actually 2. And it really gives the painting a lot more depth. And there I am. This is where the tree is right now. I will also be adding grass and some apples and snow and so forth. That's the beginning of the snow and the dirt, but there will be tall grass and green grass and apples. So I thank you all. And please go to my website and join my mailing list, my newsletter, and you'll hear more about this project. It's not finished, but it's getting there. And I do hope that you will come up to Rensselaerville when I do have its big debut to the public, and you can help paint that other tree. I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if anybody has any questions. Hi there.
Thank you, Susan. That was just great. I'm going to go through the list, and Jean-Pierre, please help me. We're going to promote you to panelists, allow you to have your cameras on and your audios on. So just give us a few minutes to be doing that, please.
Maybe we can get this one out of the way first. Charity Henderson is dying to know about the grant writing process. If you have any...
It was tedious and very hard for me. I am not a writer, but I wrote down my thoughts. I had to answer specific questions. I don't remember how many essays there were, but there were quite a few describing my work, describing the whole process that I was going to do, what my intent was. And one thing that I didn't put on the application was that after I have the show at Conklin Hall, I hope to look for a gallery, maybe a few galleries, where I will be showing this piece of work along with the sketches, and kind of have a traveling show. And also print a book of all the sketches that people could purchase. But for the grant, I had to itemize by the month everything that I was going to do and when. So I had a calendar of everything I was going to do and when. The materials I was going to use, my estimated cost, where I was going to get the donated materials and funds for the other half of the grant. What else did they ask me? And how it was going to serve the community, because that was an important aspect to the grant. What I was going to do, what my reach out would be, which is, I couldn't do anything because we had COVID. I reached out to the media. One thing I was very fortunate to have is that the Arts Center actually went over my grant with me before I submitted it. They were willing to do that. So they had made a few points to me. I had my sister, my friend, look over what I wrote, because I knew what I was talking about, but I didn't know if they would know what I was talking about and trying to express, as I said, because I'm not a writer. So that was extremely helpful, and to make sure that you're going over every item that they're bringing up in this grant. Make sure you're answering all those questions, needs, things that they want to have included in your project. I think that's very important. That's pretty much it. I don't know if Charity feels I answered her question.
Yes, thank you, Susan. That was very helpful.
Okay, great. Good luck.
Thank you.
We have
Yeah, it's very
another
hard.
another question that's of interest to several people is, how are you going to get it out of your barn?
Well, I'm going to break open the skylight and the big crane's gonna come in. No, it actually comes apart. It's 8 panels, or 5 panels, excuse me. It's 5 panels, and it all can be taken apart into the panels and then put back together.
Okay.
They're sheets of plywood.
Another question deals with the fact that they want to know if you have the snow on the spring flowers, or if there is like all the season at once on one painting. There's a slight confusion there.
Oh, I'm doing the different seasons?
Yeah.
Okay, at the top of the tree, let's see, well, if you want me to go back to sharing the screen. On the top of the tree, I had the limbs with the snow on it, and then the buds on the little branches, and then you see a little bit of green, and then there's the white flowers. Now, you can have snow at that time here when there are flowers. And then the flowers kind of get a rusty hair coming down from it. And then that falls off. And then you start getting teeny weeny little green apples, and they get bigger and bigger. And so this is going to be a progression going down the tree.
Very good. I'm sold.
So this was really great. If anybody has a question or comment, please unmute yourself and you can speak. Or if you prefer to write it in the chat, that would be great.
Joanne Ross wants to know if the technique that you have learned from this project will be applied in future work of yours.
Possibly. I would really like to work with oil sticks. I think that it would be close somewhat in some ways with pastel, having something in my hand to work with, which I like very much to be drawing and doing mark making as opposed to, I may offend somebody like you, Jean, smearing with a brush. I don't know. So it may, I think really anything you do affects the next thing you're going to do. So we'll see. It was really nice to work large. It was very freeing.
With the pastel show.
Susan, this is Terry Urban in Brooklyn. And did I hear you say you were looking for places to show this? Galleries.
Yes. If they have
Brooklyn Waterfront Artists Coalition has some very tall walls. They have a 10.5-foot ceiling.
Okay.
Would that be something that could accommodate you?
I would, no, 10 and a half would not be high enough.
No.
The painting is 12 feet by 12 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Think about New York State apple growers at Barbara says.
They always have an exhibit there, Susan. You know how the fairs are. It's Barb.
I'm not hearing you clearly. Maybe you can email me.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Is there any obvious connection to the Big Apple and your apple tree, or is this?
No. I live upstate in the Catskills. It's just apples are an important industry in New York. You know, the apples grow in New York, and the farmers make money.
I see Elizabeth is raising her hand. Elizabeth, if you have something to say, please talk.
I don't want to interrupt Susan. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure. Hi.
Susan, this is one of the very best presentations I have ever heard in all of my time at Salmagundi. Enormously interesting to show how you arrived, how your career started, your dad, everything was just so good. You rarely see a presentation that has this much to it. And I'm sure that all of us tremendously appreciate what must have been a lot of hard work to put this together.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It actually was because I had to find all of the images. And that was the hard part. And I wasn't really expecting to do such a long slideshow, but we decided that it was best. It would be easier than the technology we were going to use if I didn't. So
it was the right thing to do. And I learned something. It's fantastic to see more of the artist history instead of the exact process. You know, the process of the grant and how you did it was great. To see how your career evolved is just priceless, and you just don't get to see that. And I thought your former work examples were extraordinary. So that was just wonderful. And also I'd like to say your husband is definitely a one-of-a-kind jewel. and you have an adorable assistant.
Thank you. Yes. They're both pretty good. I'll keep them. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Really well done, Susan. It's Marcia.
Hi, Marcia. How are you?
I just love your project. Your love of the trees just shows through, and through your father, your family. I have the same connection because my family was in the lumber business and artists in the family. So the love of trees shows through. Wonderful job, and very inspiring.
Thank you. So Gabriel, I see you raising your hand. Please unmute yourself. And then after Gabriel, Sharon, please.
Yes, I really enjoyed this presentation. I think it was done superbly. I think the Chronicle logical part of sharing your growing up of being an artist to growing into where you are today is amazing. It's so inspirational. And for some people here, they might be interested in, you've talked about this mixed media, and I think we don't hear much about mixed media. Can you share like the process where you're using watercolor with a pastel? Is the watercolor used as like an underpainting?
Well, there's different ways to do that. Sometimes I will use watercolor or tempera. You can use oil and rough in your painting, I would say. Now, some artists will put in a lot of detail, or they may choose a one color and do a value painting underneath, just like you would with oil. But in using a different medium, what I like to do, I do it so that I let it show through the pastel, and that helps to give things a glow and more texture and depth. So you can also use pastel with alcohol as an underpainting, like it's watercolor. You can also use it with water. It doesn't spread it quite as evenly as alcohol does, but I like that. I like it to be a little unpredictable and not as even.
Thank you. Sharon Costello, I believe you're raising your hand. If you can unmute yourself to speak,
Yeah, I
please.
think I am unmuted. Hi, Susan. Wish I was still in Rensselaerville to see this amazing thing. But maybe I'll get there. Anyway, I'm interested in this, how you're going to do the tree that the participants are going to paint at the event. Are you going to like draw it out and they'll paint it in, or is it all going to be just from scratch, a blank canvas sort of thing?
No, I will outline the tree, and I'm thinking I probably will put a blue sky in around it, and I'll mix up some colors for them and see what happens, you know.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And you're going to do that.
Just go flat and make colors all over it.
Is it for all ages?
Yep.
Great. Oh, great.
I will be inviting senior citizens and children, and anybody that wants to come and participate will be welcome to.
Great. And is Sarah still with you? Did she help you with this project at all?
She helped me with my slides this morning because I was having trouble with
Great.
the words. I don't know, the lettering. I couldn't get the right sizes, and all these crazy things were happening. And you know, she's more techie, so she took over for me, fixed it for mommy. Yeah. But no, she's busy.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So great to see you.
So good to see you.
Anne, I believe you're raising your hand.
Hi, Susie. Such a great project and beautiful presentation. What was it like to work on such a big scale in terms of time and size? Like, how long do usually you take on, let's say, a small canvas, and how long will this project take, and what is that like, you know, inside yourself?
Well, usually if I work on something that's like a sheet of paper, 30 inches, it will take me maybe
the camera.
It's hard to say, but I will keep going back to it and put it aside then, and then come back again and maybe change it. I don't know. This particular, and I often will get frustrated with those smaller pictures and start getting too nitpicky about it. This working large it's very freeing because you're putting your whole arm into it. Time, well, I've been painting since, on the actual painting since the winter, the fall. Yeah, in the fall. I started in the fall. Maybe it was summer. I'm sorry. It's been about a year, but I didn't work during the winter because I'm in my barn and it's not heated and it's not insulated. So I could only be in here when it was maybe 50 degrees. So, and now it's starting to get too hot.
All right, I
But,
have one follow-up question. One follow-up. I was fascinated with your water when you said you love to paint the water, and then with the bark, you said you love to paint the bark. So can you just talk about like what happens for you when you're in the either water or bark?
Well, with the bark, I feel the texture. You know, it's as if you're running your hands against it. And I see a lot of colors in the bark. I know most people think of trees as gray, but I see pinks and oranges and reds and greens, and same as I do in just about everything I paint. I think from afar, things may look more muted because your eye is blending the colors together. But when you look up closely, hi Jane. When you look up
How do I
closely,
raise my hand? Yeah.
you'll see there are a lot of different colors in there. And I was going to say, Annie, that I could probably be working on this the rest of my
Yeah,
life
here.
if I want to get really fussy. And I'm going to try not to.
Susan, I have a question regarding the printed version of the book. Would you consider having a pop-up book at some point inside the book, you know, like a
Golly gee,
imagine the thing coming up?
I like that, Jean. That would be really cool. Are you volunteering to cut out that page that will pop up?
No, but
I'll give you a free copy.
okay, I'll use it for my family tree. I'll take the name.
All right.
That's a good
So
idea.
this was a fantastic evening, Susan. Thank you so much. It was just marvelous. And it was great to see your family's work and your work. It was just really beautiful. So thank you so much.
Thank you for twisting my arm.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, did you want to say a closing remark before we end the Zoom?
Well, this is really, I think, appropriate to end my term as president on such a very high note. Susan, thank you so very, very much. I almost hate to stop now. And is Pat Garrick on tonight? Is she here?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. She has been a very vocal, loud advocate for critique session. I'm wondering if the 2 weeks that are remaining, anyone would be interested in having an open critique session where everybody can speak and we all learn something. We've done it before and it was very, very rewarding. With COVID, it was kind of hard for us to get more Zoom things going. But let me know or Bonnie know if you would like us to schedule an open critique. Thank you.
Gabriel is putting thumbs up. Gabriel is a new member
All
who's
right,
really into the club. So, yeah.
Thank you, Gabriel.
All right, so let's call it a night and thank you, everyone. It was just a perfect evening. Good night, all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.